The Shrine of Remembrance, located in King's Domain on St Kilda Road, Melbourne, Australia, was built as a memorial to the men and women of Victoria who served in World War I and is now a memorial to all Australians who have served in war. It is a site of annual observances of Anzac Day and Remembrance Day and is one of the largest war memorials in Australia. Designed by architects Philip Hudson and James Wardrop, who were both World War I veterans, the shrine is in a classical style, being based on the tomb of Mausolus at Halicarnassus and the Parthenon in Athens. The crowning element at the top of the memorial's ziggurat roof references the Choragic monument of Lysicrates. Built from Tynong granite, the shrine originally consisted only of the central sanctuary surrounded by the ambulatory. The sanctuary contains the marble stone of remembrance, upon which is engraved the words, "Greater love hath no man." Once a year, on the 11th of November at 11 a.m., a ray of sunlight shines through an aperture in the roof to light up the word, "Love," in the inscription. Beneath the sanctuary lies the crypt, which contains a bronze statue of a soldier father and son, and panels listing every unit of the Australian Imperial Force. The shrine went through a prolonged process of development which began in 1918 with the initial proposal to build a Victorian memorial. Two committees were formed, the second of which ran a competition for the memorial's design. The winner was announced in 1922. However, opposition to the proposal forced the governments of the day to rethink the design, and a number of alternatives were proposed, the most significant of which was the Anzac Square and Cenotaph proposal of 1926. In response, General Sir John Monash used the 1927 Anzac Day March to garner support for the shrine, and finally won the support of the Victorian government later that year. The foundation stone was laid on the 11th of November 1927, and the shrine was officially dedicated on the 11th of November 1934. History. Conception. 1918 to 1922. A war memorial in Melbourne was proposed as soon as the war ended in November 1918. In the early 1920s, the Victorian state government appointed the War Memorials Advisory Committee, chaired by Sir Baldwin Spencer, which recommended an Arch of Victory over St Kilda Road, the major boulevard leading out of the city of Melbourne to the south. In August 1921, an executive committee was formed, with the former commander of the Australian forces in the war, General Sir John Monash, as its driving force. The committee soon abandoned the idea of an arch and proposed a large monumental memorial to the east of St Kilda Road, a position which would make it clearly visible from the centre of the city. A competition was launched in March 1922 to find a design for the new memorial, open both to British subjects residing in Australia and any Australian citizens who were residing overseas. A total of 83 entries were submitted, and in December 1923 the design offered by two Melbourne architects, Philip Hudson and James Wardrop, was announced as the winner. Opposition and response. 1922 to 1927. The winning design had a number of supporters, including publications such as the Age and George Taylor's Sydney-based trade journal. Building. Prominent citizens including artist Norman Lindsay and University of Sydney Dean of Architecture, Leslie Wilkinson, and the Royal Australian Institute of Architects. Nevertheless, the design was also fiercely criticised in some quarters, especially by Keith Murdoch's Herald. Murdoch reportedly describing the shrine as too severe, stiff and heavy, that there is no grace or beauty about it, and that it is a tomb of gloom, on the grounds of its grandiosity, its severity of design and its expense. As part of the campaign against the shrine proposal, the Herald searched for alternative concepts, arguing that the funds could be better spent on more practical projects such as a hospital or a war widow's home. Furthermore, some Christian churches also attacked the design as pagan for having no cross or other Christian element. The new Victorian Labour government of 1924, under George Prendergast, supported the Herald's view, and pushed for a memorial hospital instead of the shrine. When the Labour government was replaced with John Allen's Country National Coalition, the plan changed once again, leaning towards the earlier suggestion of an Arch of Victory to be built over St. Kilda Road. As a result of the debate, significant delays postponed the construction of the new memorial, so a temporary wooden plaster cenotaph was raised for the 1926 Anzac Day March. The success of the temporary cenotaph led the Victorian government to abandon the earlier project in 1926, and propose instead to build a permanent cenotaph in a large Anzac Square at the top of Burke Street in front of Parliament House. While this would have involved demolishing the Windsor Hotel, one of Melbourne's favourite hotels, the new plan won the support of the Herald, the Returned Soldiers League and the Melbourne City Council. Nevertheless, both Monash and Legacy still supported the shrine. After a vote in favour of the shrine by their executive council, Legacy started a public relations campaign, gaining the support of much of the media, although the council, state government and the Herald continued to oppose. In 1927, with the then Duke of York, Prince Albert, visiting the country, Monash spoke on the eve of Anzac Day at the RSL dinner, arguing for the shrine. The audience had been seeded with supporters, who provided a standing ovation at the conclusion of his speech, which helped to produce a groundswell of support. When a vote was called for, the majority voted in favour of the shrine proposal. The next day, with Monash leading 30,000 veterans in the 1927 Anzac Day March, and with the new support of the RSL, the Age, and the Argus, the shrine proposal had gained new momentum. Faced with such support, and with Monash's arguments that the Anzac Square would be prohibitively expensive, Edmund Hogan's new Labour government decided in favour of the shrine. Another early point of contention concerned the possibility of incorporating a Tomb of the Unknown Soldier into the memorial, an approach that was championed by the St. Kilda RSL, who revealed plans to bury a soldier from either Gallipoli or France on Anzac Day, the 25th of April 1922. This proposal received considerable debate, and was countered by the argument that the unknown warrior in Westminster Abbey represented all of the dead of the British Empire. Monash was on the side of those against such a burial, as while he could see a place for an unknown soldier in a national memorial, he did not feel that it would be suitable at the Victorian shrine. The stone of remembrance was later placed in the position where an unknown soldier might have been laid. An Australian unknown soldier was eventually interred at the Australian War Memorial by Prime Minister Paul Keating on the 11th of November 1993. Construction and dedication. 1927 to 1934. The foundation stone was laid on the 11th of November 1927 by the Governor of Victoria, Lord Somers. Although both the Victorian and Commonwealth governments made contributions, most of the cost of the shrine was raised in less than 6 months by public contributions, with Monash as chief fundraiser. Monash, who was also an engineer, took personal charge of the construction, which began in 1928 and was handled by the contractors Vaughan and Lodge. Monash died in 1931, before the shrine was finished, but the shrine was the cause closest to his heart. In his later years, work was finally completed in September 1934, and the shrine was formally dedicated on the 11th of November 1934 by the Duke of Gloucester, witnessed by a crowd of over 300,000 people, a massive turnout, given that Melbourne's population at the time was approximately 1 million, and, according to Carl Bridge, the largest crowd ever to assemble in Australia to that date. Post-World War II. 1945 to 1985. After World War II, it was felt necessary to add to the shrine an element commemorating the Australian war dead of the Second Great Conflict. Once again a competition was run, with A.S. Fallen E. Millston as the joint winners. Millston's design was eventually chosen as the one to go ahead, and the result was the World War II Forecourt, a wide expanse of stone in front of the shrine's north face, the Eternal Flame, a permanent gas flame set just to the west of the north face, and the World War II Memorial, a 12.5-metre high cenotaph a little further west. The forecourt replaced a reflecting pool that had previously stood in front of the shrine. These enlargements were dedicated by Queen Elizabeth II on 28 February 1954. Australia's involvements in later wars, such as the Korean War, the Borneo Campaign, the Malayan Emergency, the Indonesian confrontation in North Borneo and Sarawak, the Vietnam War and the Gulf War, are commemorated by inscriptions. In 1951, the body of Field Marshal Sir Thomas Blamey, Australia's military commander during World War II, was held at the shrine for 3 days for public viewing, followed by a state funeral on site. 20,000 people visited the shrine as he lay in state. During the Vietnam War, the shrine became a center of conflict when anti-war demonstrators protested during Anzac Day services against Australia's involvement in the war. In 1971, the shrine was defaced when the word "peace" was painted in large white letters on the pillars of the north portico. In 1985, the Remembrance Garden was added beneath the western face of the shrine to honor those who served during post-World War II conflicts. Redevelopment. 2002 present-day restoration work on the terraces surrounding the shrine during the 1990s raised once again the possibility of taking advantage of the space under the shrine. As the shrine had been built on a hollow artificial hill, the undercroft provided a large space for development. At a planned cost of $5.5 million, the new development was intended to provide a visitors center, administration facilities and an improved access to the shrine's crypt, as many of the remaining veterans and their families found the stairs at the traditional ceremonial entrance difficult to climb. In redeveloping the site, special consideration was given to the positioning of the new entrance. The original plan was to use a tunnel from the east, but this was discarded as it had no sense of ceremony. Instead, it was decided to develop 2 new courtyards, and place the new gallery under the northern steps. Construction commenced in 2002, with the design by Melbourne architects Ashton Raggett McDougall, and the new areas were opened in August 2003. The completed project was awarded the Victorian Architecture Medal by the Royal Australian Institute of Architects in 2004. After this construction was complete, there were still more calls to further develop the site, and especially to provide facilities for education about the wars. A $62 million proposal was presented in 2006, incorporating a museum and an underground car park. Designed once again by Ashton Raggett McDougall, the proposal was opposed by local residents and some council members, and ran into significant funding problems when the federal government decided not to provide funding. In 2012, the Victorian government announced that $22.5 million would be allocated to redevelop the shrine's undercroft and extend it to the south. The new exhibition space, known as the Galleries of Remembrance, was opened on Remembrance Day in 2014. A lifeboat from the ship SS Devonshire, deployed during the landing at Anzac Cove at the start of the Gallipoli campaign in 1915, is a centerpiece of the new development.